Shalom Akyam. Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to start off by giving all glory, honor, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahawashi, Bahashem Chakwadash, and double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught us the truth. A sincere shalom to the hopeful elect that's out there listening, learning, and or teaching in truth and sincerity. Shalom. Alright, Akyam, this is James chapter 4 and verse 10. It says, humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. And today I wanted to go into this topic of being humble, man. And the importance is incredible. Okay, it's crucial in this truth. Okay, because as the scriptures say, you could read all throughout the scriptures, it goes against, being proud. And who's proud today? Who's the most proud people is Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. And you see how they're ruling the earth, how they're destroying everything, including their own people. Okay, and that's the product of all that pride, man. Okay, it causes you to err. Like it says in Obadiah, it says, the pride of thy heart have deceived thee, thou that dwelleth in the clefts of the rock. These Edomites, they think they're never going to go down, but the Lord is going to make it to where those other heathen nations over there are going to ultimately bring about the end of America through nuclear destruction. Okay, because of their pride, they think they can never go down. And you've seen it happen with cocky fighters. You got fighters out there that might be cocky. They talking shit, they stick their chin out. Next thing you know, they get knocked the fuck out. You see? And this one dude I used to know who, I believe he was into fighting. He said, whoever I fight, whoever's in front of me, I'm gonna fight him like you the toughest motherfucker in the world. I don't care who you are, because that's the thing. If you allow yourself to get proud, you're gonna get caught off guard. Because what does pride do? It makes you relax. Okay, and as the scripture says, let's get that. Where it talks about enduring to the end. This is Matthew 18 and 8. It says, wherefore, or Salagi, that's not it. Matthew 24:13, it says, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Right? Meaning, in this truth, it's not enough to say that you're a Hebrew Israelite and you may even have a YouTube channel. You may even go to the highways and byways and call on the name of Yahweh and his son Yahawashi. But let's say one day you fall out of the truth. You got tired of waiting for the Lord. The Lord's not coming back in my lifetime. The Lord's not coming back within a reasonable amount of time. Let me go back in the world and seek mirth. Let me go back in the world because I'm tired of this. You got tired, right? You gave up on the plow. You're not going to be saved, man. Okay, so it's all about making it to the end, man. Right? Some of you may make it all the way to the point where they say, well, you got to take this chip for buying and selling, and then that you bug out because you weren't sincere. And you end up taking that chip. You see? So you got to make it all the way to the finish line, man. And if you want to make it all the way to the finish line in this truth, you have no time for pride. Okay? When you're in a race, you don't gloat while you're running, man. You wait to the end, and then you can lift your head up. Okay? And so, getting back to James 4 and 10, man, it says, humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. And I wanted to go into this lesson because, in my life, I've noticed that, the Lord has humbled me many times, because of that pride. And some of you may be humbled, but that's a good thing. You got to remember, you may have an ailment. Certain brothers might have knee pain, or certain brothers might even be in a wheelchair. Certain brothers might have a missing eye, or you might even be deaf, right? But everything is that way for a reason, because, the Lord, one of the reasons could even be because of pride, man. If the Lord gave you a full set of eyes or full ears that work properly, you might end up being too proud. If the Lord allowed you to, let's say you got brothers that like to go to the gym and box or lift weights, you put in a lot of work and you keep getting injured, that might be the Lord slowing you down, Because if you end up hitting all them PRs, you could get so proud that you'll forget about the Lord. So you'll be like, I don't need the Lord. Look how tough I am. Look at what I can do. You know, you might even win some money if you get into some competitive fighting and, you know, you get to a high enough level. Okay, so, you know, just emphasizing the fact that, you know, the Lord puts us in positions, you know, especially if you end up being of the elect, you know, which we call ourselves the hopeful elect. We believe that the Lord is looking out for us. Okay, so, you know, we may have certain ailments at certain times in our life because we need them at that point. All right, and, you know, I'm not saying that if you got knee pain that you shouldn't try to fix it, or if you're, you know, overweight that you shouldn't try to fix it. You definitely should try to fix those things and pray to the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Shai, that he fixes those or heals you. Okay, but at the same time, you gotta think about it. You know, hey, if the Lord healed me, am I gonna get all proud? You know, because that could be a thing that can happen, man. That's happened to people before. You know, people that you know, get to a certain level with their body, they end up becoming narcissistic. You know, like a lot of these bodybuilders out here, they think they're better than everybody just because they look better. Or you might have powerlifters that think they're better than you just because they could lift more weight than you. You might have a fighter that thinks he's better than people because he could kick their ass, you know. But that doesn't matter, man. At the end of the day, your value should be based on, you know, this truth. Do you have the true wisdom, knowledge, understanding of Yahweh Bashem Shai? That's what makes a real man. Okay, not just a real man, but a high value man. Okay, the when Isaiah 4:1 says that 7 women will cleave to one man, that's not talking about the best fighter or the strongest guy or the guy with the most money. You know, that's talking about the man of the elect, the man who has been sincere in this truth, who has you know, stuck it out to the end and stood 10 toes down for Yahweh Bashem Shai. That's gonna be a true man of value, man. Okay, and just, you know, that's why these things in the world, they don't matter. And the Lord has kept us from a lot of these things, man. Because we know ultimately nothing we can receive in this world, you know, no amount of strength or vigor or, you know, riches or women or possessions or, you know, fame, nothing that we could receive is comparable to the kingdom, man. The scripture says, better is a day in thy courts than 1,000 years, roughly paraphrasing. You know, one day in the kingdom is better than 1,000 good days or 1,000 good years here in this shithole called America, Babylon. Okay? And that's why the scripture says this. Let's get Matthew's 18:8. It says, wherefore, if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off and cast them from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life halt or maimed, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into everlasting fire. And this is more going into, of course, if you got certain things in your life, even certain people that are in the way of this truth, that are causing you to get offended, hey, cut them out. Cut those people out. Cut, you know, maybe there's something that you do, maybe somewhere you go or something you like to do and you're doing it over much. Hey, cut it out. You know, even to the point where it says cut your own eye out and your own foot out. And it's symbolic, but it's also literal in the sense that, yeah, if you knew, you know, that with one eye you could make it in the kingdom, but you have 2 eyes, the logical decision is to gouge that eye out, you know, which I'm not telling anybody to gouge their own eye out, but we're thinking about this on a deep level to understand that, hey, if you have 2 eyes, you know, take a man that was called into this truth, who has his 2 eyes, right? And he got pretty far. Maybe he did 3 years, you know, but then he bugged out. You know, he got proud or whatever it may be. Well, shit, if he had that 1 eye, he would have been able to see more of, you know, how evil this world is and how much more it is better to look forward to the kingdom of heaven. And he might have locked in more, and that guy would have made it all the way to the chariots at the end. You see, just an example. Okay, so a lot of you brethren out there, this is also a lesson of comfort as well. If you got certain ailments or certain disadvantages, maybe you got baby mama drama, or maybe you got some other negative thing that's in your life that's, putting hell on you, it might be to your benefit, man. It might just be keeping you humble. Because the scripture says in Proverbs, hey, give me neither riches nor poverty. Because if I get too rich, I'll forget about the Lord. But if I get too poor, then I'll, just roughly paraphrasing, I'll steal and take the Lord's name in vain, right? So the Lord got us on a tightrope. The Lord got us on that narrow path. Okay, and a big part of that as well is not getting too proud, man. So, hey, another thing, you short kings out there, man. The Lord might have made you short, because if he might have made you tall, you would have probably been too proud. The Lord does everything for a reason, man. And it's good to be humble, man. And I've seen this in my own life where, when I get an injury, I always end up coming back better from it. I'll lose weight. I'll get in shape. I'll do more rehab exercise. Eventually, I start doing full body exercises. I've had a lot of injuries in the gym in my life, or also on the job and shit like that. And I've gotten through those injuries, and the Lord has healed me through those injuries. But of course, you got to do the work. Okay, and so what I'm saying is, a lot of brethren might be going through similar things. You could apply this metaphor to other things in your life as well that are negative, that may be there to, put a cap or put a ceiling on how proud you get, man, because you don't want to get to the point where you think you're good. Our elder in the camp always says it's never enough. You don't ever want to get to a point where you think you're good, because the moment you think you're good, you relax and you fuck up. When I used to go to the gym a lot, I noticed, that after the injury, I was a lot more careful and able to, I'm able I was able to go more long term, whereas before I ever got any injuries, it was always pedal to the metal, go, 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 and that's just unwise, man. It's a marathon, not a race. So you got to be able to understand that, and for lack of a better word, I'm kind of all over the place, but basically the point being that humility makes you better. Okay, humility makes you much better than if you're proud. Okay, so with that, I want to grab a few precepts, man. This is Sirach 3 and verse 18. It says, the greater thou art, the more humble thyself, and thou shalt find favor before the Lord. So this is how we ought to be. When we get better, okay, we should immediately humble down even more, because, hey, it's like they say, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. You could get to high heights in anything you do, all right, whether it be worldly or in this truth. But the more you do, the more you should be even more humble, man. Because who did it? It wasn't you. It was Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. A man's goings are of the Lord, like the scripture says. So how can a man know his own way? Roughly paraphrasing, If you end up making it to the point where, you resisting all the way to the end, you're escaping all the said perils, you're in Jacob's trouble, you got big faith, you still got to stay humble, man, because the chariots haven't showed up yet, and that's the thing. It's almost like a balance, man. Like in the world, they say when you lift weights, you want to stretch so you don't get tight. The humbling is that stretch, because when you work out nonstop and you never stretch, eventually you're going to get injured. All right. Especially with the Western way of lifting weights where, it's, and that's another thing I've been getting into, man. Just a side point. A lot of ancient forms of exercise were more balanced and better for your body. They include the stretch as well as the workout all in one, but that's neither here nor there, man. The point being, the better you get, the more humble you got to be, man. Even Yahweh Shai humbled himself, greatly, especially what happened in the cross, suffering that humiliation. All right, but another example to come to mind is when he washed the disciples' feet. That was the lowest servant's duty. And Yahweh Shai, being the greatest man ever, he put himself, as the lowest servant, man. Okay, and that's the mindset, You want to give it your all and try to be the best you can in this truth and everything you do, but remain humble. Remember that it's the Lord who did it for you, man. Which, the Lord has helped me heal my body many times, man. And this time, I was really making sure I thank the Lord, man, and not take any of the credit for it. Because the Lord is the one who gives us the knowledge to heal ourselves. The Lord is the one who gives us the herbs, the different exercises, different ideas that we might not have access to, And, the Lord ultimately does the healing. So, we always got to give credit to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Whenever he heals us or whenever anything good happens in our life, even in the morning, man. That's why I made a video saying, thank the Lord. Be thankful, man. When you wake up, the water Yahweh Bashem Yahushai for another blessed day. You're blessed. It could always be worse. Like some examples I gave, you could have one eye. You could be completely blind and deaf. There's people that live that life. Okay, and so you always got to think about it like that. Be thankful for what you got. Be the best you could be, but know that you ain't shit at the same time. You got to hold that paradox in order to be the best soldier for Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right? So let's get to the next precept here. Proverbs 16:18, pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. That's right. Because when you get proud, you relax, you stop paying attention, you start to enjoy your victory. You can't enjoy it, man, because that energy, you could put it forth to paying more attention, right? If you're in a boxing match, you start celebrating before the bell rings, you might just get knocked out, and the Lord will knock you out. Because the Lord, and that's the thing, man, the Lord is the one who humbles and exalts you, and that's why you want to, like it said in James 4, humble yourself in the sight of the Lord and he will lift you up, man. Because with great power come great responsibility, man. So the Lord is not going to tempt you beyond what you could bear. So if you showing the Lord that you can't bear any temptation because you get proud over every little thing, then the Lord ain't going to give you more responsibilities, man. Because then you end up destroying yourself, So that might be one of the things. If brothers want to get healed from certain things, you might need to humble yourself even more. So the Lord can, will be justified, or I want to word it correctly, so that the Lord could heal you and you don't destroy yourself from pride, man. Pride is a very evil thing. Okay? Especially in a wicked environment. Just look at these women for an example. They got social media and dating apps. All right? And if they all they got to do is take the pictures at the right angle, and they got hundreds of thirsty simps building up their ego to the point where they're out here destroying their own selves, and they don't even realize it because everybody's telling them how attractive they are. Everyone's throwing pipe at them. But at the end of the day, she can't figure it out because that pride, it'll deceive you, man. So you want to really purge that pride out of your life, man. That's a very evil thing, and it is no benefit to you. It's no benefit, man. All right? This is Philippians starting at verse 2, or Salakia. Philippians 2 starting at verse 1. And I like how the title says, be like Hamashiach. It says, if there be therefore any consolation in Hamashiach, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any bowels and mercies, fulfill ye my joy, and ye be like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord and of one mind. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory. Right? We're all in this together. We're all preaching the same doctrine. We're all of one mind here at Great Millstone, and the brethren that are of like mind, like the affiliates. Hey, it says, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind. Let each esteem other better than themselves. Right? Look at the other brethren like they're better than you. It's gonna keep you in that locked in state, man. Because we don't know how much we sinned in our past lives. We don't know how much mercy and grace we have as individuals. Another brother may have more mercy than you, and he may not look like he's on your level, right? But so you shouldn't even think that way. You should just now, of course, we respect hierarchy. You got the elders and things like that. But what I'm saying is, humility is important. Okay? Esteem others better than themselves, right? Not doing things in vainglory, right? Oh, look at me, I make all these videos, or look at me, whatever. It's like, no, that's not the point. We're not here to compete with each other. We're here to do the work of the Lord in sincerity and in truth with great humility, man. Because even though we do all this, we don't have a guaranteed spot on a chariot. We're not guaranteed salvation. You still gotta what? Endure to the end. So you it's like another example that comes to mind, man. In the world, there was this one dude I know who made a lot of money in his field. And he said, how he got ahead, because he used to be, heard he was homeless at one point. But how he got ahead was by saying, I live like I'm broke. He's like, I got money now, but I still live like I'm broke. I still think like I'm broke, because it keeps him hungry. It keeps him going. And that's a great mindset to apply to this truth, doing everything we can do and thanking the Lord for everything, man. We don't know where we're at as far as, mercy and grace. We just know that the Lord has called us, and Lord's will we be chosen, But yeah, Akim, just wanted to share that real quick, because the Lord has given me some good insight on how to heal my body in certain areas. And, I quickly started to relax in life. I noticed, little parts of my spirit trying to relax, and I said, no, that's what happened last time, and that's how I ended up in this position. So as soon as you get a blessing from the Lord, man, that might be something that could be used in pride, be weary of that prideful spirit, man. Beware of it, and humble yourself that much more. If the Lord gives you a gift or a blessing, think of it like, okay, I got this blessing. Let me make sure I stay humble so I don't lose it. That's the right mindset to have. Not thinking, oh, well, look at me now. I did this myself. We didn't do shit, man. Even us being in this truth, we're not in this truth because we're smarter than other people. We're not in this truth because something we did. We're in this truth because of the mercy and grace of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, and because he chose us. There is no free will at the end of the day, which we made videos on that many times, man. So the best thing we could do is humble ourselves greatly before Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. All right? And that's pretty much all I want to go into. So with that, Akim. So with that, I want to finish by giving all glory, honor, and praises unto Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Chakwadash. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught us the truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Shalom.